That's me.
I finally caved. After much procrastination, I watched a little show called Godzilla Singular Point.
Godzilla?
Godzilla.
You said Scylla, like with a C.
Oh, well.
Godzilla.
Well, at least I didn't say Godzilla.
Yeah, that's true.
You
Or
know.
you can say Gigantus.
Or
Fire
Gigantus.
monster.
Gigantus, the fire
monster.
monster. Oh, man. I remember in the Godzilla saga, one of the old lores in that is that the female versions of Godzillas were referred to as Gigantus.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, no, thanks. Just get rid of that horse shit. Though I will admit, I think Gigantus is a badass title. Like a badass name.
It's a cool title, but it's not Godzilla.
It's just not Godzilla.
No.
But boy howdy, did I watch Godzilla Singular Point.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That's a good way to open the Singular Point portion.
that was a lot.
Yeah, it's so I mentioned this to you before. I forget who wrote the show. His history of writing is like Japanese sci-fi novels, and I'm talking like and from the show you can tell like hardcore like sci-fi, like hyper specific sci-fi.
Well, that's
If
like
that makes
all the
sense.
show was.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I was watching this and I was like, my God, this is like the final season of TNG and all of Star Trek Voyager, where it's nothing but technobabble the entire show. And I like my technobabble. I do. I love it when characters sound like they know what they're talking about, and even if we don't. Like, if they know what they're talking about, I tend to get on board with it. One of the reasons why several parts of Evangelion works so well is that they have these moments where it's just info dump. And they always have
The
that...
Lanceologinous.
Yeah, oh my God.
All these terms being thrown out left and right.
Who the fuck is that? What's Adam now?
What's Adam? Adam's who?
Wait,
Mace
Lilith
what?
But yeah, it was. I will say this. Actually, you know what, Lucas? Why don't you go first? What were when you first watched it? Because again, you watched it a while ago.
Oh yeah, I watched it like the week it came out.
Yeah, the week it came out.
So-
Because of course it is. You're clearly a bigger Godzilla fan than I am.
I would not go that far. There are things I do not know that you know. I will not take that card from you, sir. I know a lot, but not as much as you do.
What were your overall thoughts?
So I'm gonna give you my exact statement of Godzilla Singular Point. Godzilla Singular Point is a good show that made me feel fucking stupid. All right, we got that out of the way now. Like,
Wow.
I think it was a cool show overall. It definitely was one of the most like, this doesn't really feel like Godzilla things I've consumed. That's an official Godzilla thing, and I don't mean that as a bad thing. But there were definitely times where I'm like, is this a Godzilla thing? Like, it's at times, but I overall enjoy it as a piece. But as I said, there is so much science babble in the show to the point where I felt like an idiot. I'll be honest. Like, I felt stupid, but like I think there's some pretty good heights. Also, I think the opening fucking slaps.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think it's something.
I don't like anime openings. Very rarely do I like anime openings. I like the one for this.
Oh yeah, I thought this one was great.
Yeah.
Both the music and the visuals I think were awesome. What else? Like, I overall liked most of the designs in the show. The only one I didn't really jive with that well was Rodan, because I feel like they went too pterodactyl with it.
Yeah, I would agree. Sorry for the pause. I thought you were going to continue.
Okay.
No,
I wanted to know your true take, because I know it's like you said this, and I even agree with you. It's like it's very similar to Gauss.
It is Gauss.
It's very Gauss.
The only thing they even do, like, they put their energy in like a giant, bigger one. It was a mixture of Gauss and Mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I liked it.
I think
liked
Anguirus
it.
is a super cool design, even though it's just like basically it's Anguirus but enhanced.
It's actually he looks far more like a pointy Ankylosaurus, which was the original inspiration for Anguirus anyways. So I'm like, okay, I like this. They made him terrifying. I'll say this. They made him terrifying. And I was like, cool.
They made also like everyone thought it was Gabara, but his name is actually Salunga.
I wanted to
Which
get into that.
I think it's still very inspired by that design. I think there's like it's inarguable that it's supposed to be that design, but they just gave it a name.
Yeah.
Um,
Why didn't they just go with Gabara? They could have used anyone else.
I don't
I
know.
still think it's Gabara. I don't care what they say. I still think it's Gabara.
Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, I synced Gabara's roar on top of that thing, and I just added a little reverb.
Ooh.
And boy howdy, does it work, and does it terrify you, as it should.
Yeah.
Because
I
I,
mean,
I
that
love
was
I
always-
love that thing of it climbing up and
Oh,
they're
yeah,
trying to
that's
close the
actually-
gates
that's a
while
cool
they're
shot,
running,
yeah.
trying to get out of there. I'm like, that's great
cool
shit.
I also think I thought it was cool that they went with like the style. I mean, it was a little tongue in cheek, but I think it made sense for the story they were telling. They went with the style of like Godzilla's evolving, similar to how it happens in like Shin.
Well, let me say my overall thoughts, and then we can
Okay,
start getting into more of those
Sorry.
details. Like, how
Go.
dare you just jump the gun like that, Lucas? How fucking dare you?
I'm gonna keep firing it from the hip.
Hey, Justin, glad you could join.
Hello.
So, I said to you earlier, Lucas, I thought Godzilla's Singular Point was not a great show, but it was certainly a good show.
Okay.
Like, if I was to grade it from 1 to 100, it would probably have a solid 85. 85%.
That's actually still pretty high from what you're describing.
Well,
Like,
to me,
what you're describing,
excellent is 90 and up. Excellent is like 90% and
Okay.
up.
Okay.
And good is basically anything from a C+ to a B+.
Okay,
essentially.
actually, yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
That's
okay.
just tends to be how I rate things, anyways. I tend to rate them like people grade schoolwork. But I really enjoyed it. I've said this before as well, and I'll say it again here. I love the fact that while America reduced Godzilla to its most basic form with the Monsterverse
yeah.
and really dumbed the character down to the point that it's just a paper-thin outline of what we could get. I love how the Japanese are experimenting like there's no tomorrow with what Godzilla is, what it could be. Does it really always need to fit something? They're really experimenting, for good and for bad. I praise the anime trilogy for experimenting and their experimentation, even though I think quite a bit didn't land. I was like, well, at least we were getting something new. This is interesting, at least, in the very least. And I have that similar opinion of Singular Point, except I think it lands a little bit better on everything but Godzilla himself.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And, like, I love this world that they're setting up, or that they did set up. I loved all of that. Clearly inspired by Shin Godzilla in more way than one.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fine, because Shin Godzilla certainly did something new with Godzilla as well. And I like even when it comes down to like the doctor that mysteriously disappeared and everything like that. That was also in Singular Point. Godzilla evolving, that's from Shin Godzilla. I liked all that though. I liked the universe that was establishing. What I admired about Singular Point is while Shin Godzilla tried to be as grounded in reality as possible and said, despite these couple of fantastical elements, everything else is in reality, which is very similar to the original Godzilla, by the way.
Yeah.
Godzilla's Singular Point took those crazy ideas and just said, go, run with it, and let's enhance upon that idea. And boy, howdy did I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, the first episode, I was captivated like there's no tomorrow. Like, what the fuck is happening? Why is there this song that's playing?
Yeah.
What does
That
this
was
all
cool.
mean? Like, I was having a hard time following it. Clearly done with intention.
Yeah.
And I really like that. My problems with Godzilla Singular Point, to really sum it up, is that it is clearly inspired by Hideaki Anno and Evangelion. You know, the Red Sea, the angels trying to make Earth a little bit more like their environment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That is all present here. What this show needed, more than anything else, is it needed to act more like Evangelion. And that it needed to slow the fuck down. It needed to let these characters breathe. It needed to flesh them out in order for me to properly care about them. That, and the other thing, too, is Godzilla himself. He has so little... I usually never complain about this. but he has so little screen time that, and he's so not Godzilla. Like, his design is right, his roar is right, and everything like that, but it didn't feel like Godzilla. Like, there's something missing with Godzilla himself, which if they do a season 2, I hope they can play with that a little bit more. And maybe you can flesh Godzilla out a bit more. Personally, I don't know if they've confirmed if there's a season 2 or going to be a season 2 or not.
I feel like I remember hearing they did confirm.
I remember hearing that too. Hopefully somebody in the comments
end on a
could
cliffhanger
confirm.
too?
We do, with mechagodzilla.
Yeah.
And I'd be okay if there was just one season of this. I really would be. Like, I'm like, this is a good self-contained story. It was flawed, but it told itself pretty damn well, to the point that by the final episode, I was pumped. I wanted to know where this was going, where this was ending. And personally, I thought the conclusion was satisfactory, which is hardly ever possible. You know, everybody has all these ideas and everything, that suddenly the conclusion, you're like, oh, how the fuck do we wrap this shit up? And I thought the show handled it very well. It was a good show. I highly enjoyed it. I know a lot of diehards out there didn't enjoy it because they thought it was too radically different. I'm like, well, that's because it's an anime. And anime, if there's any visual genre or, you know, that I say you could really deviate from the norm, it's an anime, you know? Like, don't necessarily do live action.
It also comes from a place of, like, because this is something I've personally, like, have just accepted at this point. I just don't even, like I for like a basic, I hate to use this term, Adam. When it comes to fandom stuff, I hate that term so much. I really have grown to just very, like, hear the basic reaction to something, but then still go ahead. And that was just obvious. Still go ahead and form my own opinion on it, because people are just so, like, angry about every little thing, and it's just like, look, man, if this one didn't land for you, I'm sure another part of this will land for you.
Well, it's not like you have 32 other movies.
Yeah, it's like multiple eras of other media you can consume from this product. And, like, I'm not gonna act like I'm perfect. Like, I mean, like, there are some franchises, Pokemon, that if you bring it up to me now, I'm just like, fuck off. Like, don't even fucking talk to me about this. But with Godzilla, I've always appreciated difference. I've always appreciated, like, change, and like, even as I've gotten older, and like the movies I would have made fun of, like for example, like Godzilla's Revenge, like, that movie's it's not a good movie, but I at least appreciate that it's something different, and at the time period made sense to come out.
Sure, I agree with you. Actually.
I don't think it's I do not. I want it on record. I don't think that's a good movie.
You and I can agree there.
Yeah. But then it's like, you know, later on you get stuff like GMK. It's like, that's completely
different. Yeah, and
it's
you know what? I've noticed that too. A lot of the people who were bitching about Godzilla Singular Point praised GMK. And I'm like, guys, GMK is a very similar situation, where he took what was an established character, threw it out the window, and tried something new.
Not just one established character, like
multiple,
Ghidorah.
like making Ghidorah a good guy.
A good guy, like, what?
And somehow he made it work.
Yeah,
I'm like, this is great. This is great.
Yeah, it's just like, I feel like people will always constantly yell that they want change, and then when some kind of change happens, even if it's not like a good change,
Star Wars,
but like, yeah,
The Last
Jedi.
But
if it's a bad, and if it's a bad change, but if it's actually a good change, people will still complain about it because it's not, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing the thing we do all the time? And I'm like, well, you wanted something different. I don't, like, what do you want? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Make up your mind. Like, I don't know, man.
And boy, well, I could say this. I like Singular Point enough that, like, I watched it all. I binged it all in one night because I didn't want to stop. And I can say that more for Godzilla Singular Point than I could for the anime trilogy.
I think Singular Point, despite being complex, is a lot easier to consume compared to those anime movies.
I do too,
to be honest.
Also, I loved the animation in it.
Oh yeah,
I love the animation. I heard a lot of people complaining about the mixture of 3D elements with the 2D elements. That didn't bother me on this one. I was shocked.
People do that all the time. Like, they for some reason discredit 3D animation as if it's not as valid as 2D animation. Well, yeah, 2D animation definitely takes more skill and prowess to do. That shouldn't discredit 3D animation at all is something this, and the 3D animation in this was good, and it worked because like the monsters and like the robots were 3D and everyone else was 2D. It's a nice contrast. I like stuff like that personally.
See, I noticed that too, and I was like, this works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved all that shit, and you know what I also liked about this going more into the experimentation route as well. They chose very obscure kaijus, like, with a couple of exceptions. Of course, you got Rodan and Anguirus in there, but like Kamunga, Kamacuras, and then Hedorah has a little cameo in there too.
Hedorah has a cameo?
Yeah, it's the slime thingy that when they kill the spiders, the slime thing turns into Hedorah.
I never actually made that connection. Yeah,
and
there's Manda too.
Manda, I forgot about that. Titanosaurus kind of thing. Titanosaurus kind of turns into Varan for a moment.
Yeah, well, those are definitely probably intended references, if anything.
Yeah,
too.
if anything, but you know, I enjoyed all that stuff. I really did because it kept me going. Okay, what's going to happen next? Mm-hmm. And I applaud the show for doing this. I genuinely do. As said in some of the comments already. Lava, you wrote, my personal opinion was that it was good, but it was way over descriptive. Yes. Yeah,
that's a pretty safe. I can agree with that.
What is that thing called that is supposed to kill them?
The orthogonal diagonalizer. I might be pronouncing the second part wrong, but if you watch the show, you know what I'm talking about. They say it a lot.
You couldn't have made a simpler title than that, or you could just say that and then just dumb it down. You know, and make it like an acronym for it or whatever. But, you know.
We gotta know they're using the orthogonal diagonalizer.
I loved the concept of the archetypes, though.
Yeah, that was cool.
And I loved how they never tell you what all of them are. You know a few of them, but not all of them. In fact, to the point that I think probably some of the kaiju are considered an archetype. But I loved that shit. Like, I was like, this is intriguing enough that I want to learn more. And I applaud any show that has that. And you know what? This is going to sound really weird, but hear me out. I love the fact that the show just said, fuck it, everybody's speaking Japanese no matter what their nationality or race. They didn't bother to have people speaking English or Indian, where the acting was probably terrible.
I never made that connection.
There's no bad English in this show. They just said, fuck it, they're all speaking Japanese. And I'm like, you know what? We're mature enough that I think we can buy it. And I would rather have them speaking very good Japanese and acting very well than distracting English. That even Shin Godzilla suffers from. Though Shin Godzilla is nowhere near as bad as, let's say, Godzilla vs. Biollante.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
or the wonderful depiction of New Yorkers from Final Wars.
Well, that's just the sad thing is
accurate.
That scene in Final Wars, which always makes me laugh. It's a big birdie.
It's funny as fuck.
That scene is only one scene, right? And it's not really important to the movie on the whole. The difference is on Biollante, entire sequences, which are important to the plot and development of the movie, are English. Bad English, to the point that I can barely understand what they're saying. And that's really distracting. Really distracting. I apply, and it did. It took me out of Shin Godzilla as well. And I just love what the show said. No, fuck it.
nah, we don't do that.
Screw it. I love the design of Godzilla Ultima. I love that design.
Ultima, I think, is great. I think that's such a cool design.
That is a cool ass design.
The tail is fucking huge. Like, I just feel like Godzilla's tail is increasing with each incarnation. It's just getting longer and longer.
Yeah. I agree. The other issue that I have, it's not really so much an issue. I think it's just very Japanese. Japan, Western films or stories in general tend to have a single protagonist that they kind of follow throughout the entire thing. Well, I've noticed in Japanese movies in particular, they tend to have a series of protagonists that you follow. Like there's like one character that tends to stand out above the rest, but for the most part, it's a series of main characters. And Singular Point is no exception. And Shin Godzilla does the same thing, where, I mean, you have that one character, don't get me wrong, but it's really sprinkled out over several characters, even though you could have easily combined them into several of them and sort of into one character, instead of there being 3 characters, that you could combine them into one character. Well, Japan, they don't seem to care about that. They just said, well, we're just making a new character. I'm okay with that. I actually kind of like that. To me, that adds a level of believability to the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't... And this is sort of the benefit of an anime, too, I think, as well. Even if I can't remember their names, I recognize the faces and the designs.
Yeah.
And that really helped a lot in Singular Point.
I really liked the relationship between Mei and Yun.
Me too.
It's like the main boy, the main girl. How they were like, they kind of just find each other, and they're figuring this out like through text and stuff through a good portion of the show, and that's how they're bonding.
Oh my god, I loved those scenes where it's just the texts, them texting each other and the text on screen. I was like, I didn't think they could make that intense, but they did.
Yeah, and then you eventually too, and like the way they talk to one another through those texts, you see eventually they kind of warm up to one another. They're sending like more emojis than normal, like they're being like doing jokes with one another too. Well, it's like I thought that,
and I like the
friendship
fact
was cool.
that. Yeah, I loved that shit. I loved that just a little bit like that was just fine. If I remember correctly, she died, didn't she? She died in the show off screen.
No, Mei lives.
No. Oh, she does live.
Yeah, I believe she's still alive. Yeah,
can't remember.
It was Mei's like mentor who died.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
You're right.
Oh, no, yeah, they meet up at the end and like celebrate the victory and everything too.
I will ask you this right now.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of the AI?
Woo! Yeah, I was waiting for that. Oh, I fucking love Paleops too. He's fucking great. I love him. There's no way to put it besides that.
The thing that she has on her phone.
Yeah, the little dog guy. I love him.
I thought I was gonna hate it. I thought I was gonna hate it. Boy, howdy did it grow on me as it went along. Yeah. And I also like how this thing doesn't come out of nowhere. It is quite established that in this particular world, AIs are far more advanced than what they are in our timeline to begin with.
Yeah.
And I liked that. I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed the integration. What was the one? Was it the same thing that that takes over Jet Jaguar?
Yeah, Paleops 2.
Yeah, I loved that. I didn't think I would.
Because he gets too smart because he learns the code, and then it's like, oh shit, wait, that's like the big twist at the end.
Yeah, and I liked all that. I also found the juxtaposition really funny, where it was like this really sort of high-pitched voice coming out of this big robot.
Yeah.
Clearly done for a bit of comedic effect, and it made me chuckle, and I liked it. I liked a lot of it, and again, a lot of my issues just come from the fact that it just needed to let these characters breathe a bit. It needed to let them just be them. Like, I miss my long shots of Shinji just walking, and it's a static shot that goes on for 5 minutes of Shinji just walking, and nothing's happening. It's just letting us sit here and digest what has happened and process
where's the elevator
info.
scene? Where's the elevator scene that's like a still image where someone will just sniff in every few seconds or so? I want that.
Where's my train? I still love that.
Where are the cicadas?
I love that when fucking the Shin Kamen Rider trailer came out, even before anything happened. I was like, I knew this was a Hideaki Anno movie because there's a train.
It's like the first shot, isn't it? Like the first
it's
shot
like
of the trailer.
I was like, "Yep, this is a Hideaki Anno movie."
Hell yeah,
you know, Quentin Tarantino has feet.
You don't need to say anything.
Hideaki Anno has his trains.
Ah, yeah, the juxtaposition of feet and trains. All right, kids, what's the common relation between feet and trains? They're director quirks.
Oh my god, I love this. It was, all jokes aside, I really enjoyed a lot of it. The problem is that a lot of the characters started blending together for me. Kind of.
I think one of the things that I think they do introduce too many characters.
There are too many.
I remember the main crew. You know, so you got Yun, you got Goro, you got Haberu, and then you have May and Pelops too. Everyone else, like who are like more like the government characters, I can't remember
There
like
was
a lot
there
of
was
them.
an army
I'll be
guy
honest.
too. There's a guy in the JGSDF that I can't remember who he was, especially
Yeah,
towards the end where they were trying to attack Godzilla Ultima and everything like
yeah,
that. And I
yeah,
also want to say this as well. This show handled that it was the apocalypse or catastrophe, as it's mentioned in this. Handled it
yeah,
very well. And I liked the fact that because these kaijus and them coming into our reality and them almost terraforming the Earth to be like their reality.
yeah, yeah.
I love how there's several shots in this show where you just see the red off in the distance.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's
and it
cool.
created a great atmosphere
Yeah,
that we
it's
are
foreboding.
on a severe
Like, yeah,
ticking time bomb. Even
yeah,
before
I
we
agree
know
with you on
we're
that.
actually on a ticking time bomb. And I
Yeah,
applaud it for doing that. You could definitely tell that a sci-fi writer
yeah,
was in charge of this.
yeah,
Yeah, and the moment I didn't know that until you told me about it, and I
yeah.
was like, suddenly it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
What is going
I
on?
was told by that by a friend too, and that it was I had the same reaction. I'm like, that makes so much sense why the show was written the way it is. Like,
It's odd because I don't know anyone that really worked on this film. Like I was checking on IMDb, like I haven't seen anything else.
what studio did this? I actually don't.
I thought it was Toho
Oh, it was
Animation.
Bones. Oh shit! I how did I forget that? So
I,
Bones,
I
Studio
what?
Bones
Yeah.
does My Hero Academia, but more importantly to
Oh,
me, which I like My Hero, but they did Mob Psycho 100, which is like my second favorite anime of all time, which just finished.
another reason why I have you on this
Yeah.
show. You're an anime guy. I am not.
Yeah, I know like the studios I really like, and I really like Bones, and I really like Trigger.
My favorite one is the company that did Attack on Titan, and I don't care
That
what anyone says.
that is Mappa. Mappa's also really good. Mappa did Chainsaw Man.
Like if somebody said, "Adam, you need to make an animated Godzilla series," I'm going with the Attack on Titan one.
Well, I mean, like my if like I could shape reality, my dream would be to make my personal project and have it animated by Studio Trigger. But that's a whew, we got a long way to go.
Got a long way to go.
A long way to go if that's ever gonna happen.
I really, again, I didn't have any problems with the animation. In fact, I had significantly less issues with the animation on Singular Point than I did the anime trilogy.
No, yeah, I think because again, Singular Point commits to
Yeah,
monsters, unearthly things being 3D, and then humans being 2D. I think
commits is a good thing is a good word you just used.
yeah,
Because I can say this far more than the MonsterVerse. Boy, howdy did Singular Point commit to its idea.
oh yeah, yeah. I think that's another reason why I enjoy it.
Yeah, like it said, nope, we're going.
Yeah.
And, there's stuff in the show where I'm like, I didn't think it was going to work. I thought it was going to drag, and then it wound up being some of my favorite moments in the show. Like the whole Kamunga thing. And they find the
Yeah.
dead Manda washed up on the beach, and they think like Godzilla killed it, but then they discover like, no, it's been eaten already.
Yeah,
Something's eating it.
yeah.
And then they discover like the spider web and everything
Mhm.
like that. And I loved that entire bit. I loved
liked,
that entire
yeah.
episode.
Another thing about this world I liked too was how like these kaiju were getting their names not by like scientists, but it was just kind of becoming the pop like social media and the populace were naming them. They were like it was like people are calling these things Rodans on the internet, and that's what they slowly accept that as the names of these creatures. I think that was really cool.
Well, it almost makes you wonder if Godzilla was in this universe beforehand.
Ooh, I didn't think of that.
Where it's like this meta kind of thing
Yeah.
that's happening,
Yeah.
and like this monster just kind of looks like Godzilla. Well, let's call it Godzilla. I don't think that's what it was
Nah,
at
it's
all.
fun
But
one of those fun to imagine things.
yeah, and it's really when creators commit to the universe and are like, you know what, they don't question it. Like they just go, we're not taking the middle of the road. We're going balls out on this idea. That I tend to buy it better.
Yeah,
I tend to appreciate it more. Final Wars.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that commits to being just off the wall the entire time.
Absolute insanity. Absolutely
Pays off too.
And And it does 100%. I used to hate that movie as a kid. Like, I used to hate it, and then all of a sudden I watched Ryori Kitamura's, the director, his movie Versus, which is one of my favorite zombie movies ever, and it's awesome.
Always so good stuff.
Only after watching Versus and then rewatching Final Wars did suddenly I go, I get it. And I love it. It took stuff like that, but yeah. Let's see some of these fucking comments, my god. Let's see. Let's see. GMK Ghidorah is also the only one who's significantly smaller in size to his respective Godzilla. That is a good point, Justin. It means no matter what the universe is, the two will be arch enemies in one way or the other. Yeah, absolutely. I want to say Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, 1991, kind of plays on that. Because that's kind of what because that's kind of what the movie's about. It's an examination of Japan's relationship to Godzilla, where he can be an absolute hero and a savior one moment, and then it's utter destroyer the next. It's a really good movie. The oxygen destroyer.
Orthogonal diagonalizer.
I like how there are some like alpha versions of the kaiju. Yeah, I did notice that as well.
Yeah. That's cool.
They definitely go around in this universe and say, you know what, there is a hierarchy to these creatures. There's, they really put thought into the monsters that I really liked a lot. Which is more than I can say for other stuff. Monsterverse. But it's...
Ooh.
I am. I'm throwing so much shade at the Monsterverse. I
know. Yeah.
I feel bad. Because I am excited for this new Kong thing that they're doing.
The Kong, Godzilla and Kong movie? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes. I thought they were doing a show. No, that's Disney.
Oh, they might be. Well, they're doing... So there's a sequel to Godzilla vs. Kong coming out that's just called Godzilla and Kong, but there's also like a Monsterverse TV show for Apple TV or something.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I'm very like, I just need to see what this is first.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm curious,
I'll probably watch it. I'm not buying Apple TV though. No.
Okay. Get back on track. God damn it.
Oh God.
Let's see. Interesting that there's no Ghidorah in Singular Point. Yeah, I was expecting Ghidorah to show up, and I'm glad he didn't. I feel his inclusion to the show would have been overkill, and I agree.
Yeah, I actually think that too.
I 100% agree.
I don't think it would have made sense.
No, I don't think it would have made sense either.
They're proposing Godzilla Ultima as like the ultimate destroyer of this universe, so I don't think it would.
It's like Batman and the Joker. You've always got to somehow fiddle the Joker into everything that you do. And I'm like, no, you don't. Yeah. No, you don't. Batman's got plenty of other interesting villains that you can play with.
Yeah, like the Crazy Quilt, or the Condiment King.
I'm trying to think of what was his name, Agent Tanaka from the '40s show. He was a Japanese guy who was going to blow up the West Coast or some shit. Like, oh yeah, this was made during World War II. Hello there, guys. Hope you are all having a good good evening. Glad you can make us the Goji Shay.
Thank you, Goji Shay. We appreciate
Antonio,
it.
I hope you're wiping your nose.
Yeah, seriously, fucking cover up, Jesus, man.
But yeah, I just really enjoyed it, and it was good. Yeah. I was so happy to see something new. I really was. Mm-hmm. Like you have no idea how much I was just like, oh, I have no idea what's going on. I'm good.
I love the way you said that. Good.
Well, it's because one reason why I think I like this anime series too is that it didn't really have many of the tropes that I get tired of with anime. Like, it didn't have the over-sexualized characters.
No.
It didn't have big boobed ladies. It didn't have a character screaming what she or he is doing while piloting a robot. Yeah. As much as I love Evangelion for doing that, but it's just I really appreciated this world and everything that was in it and everything that was cultivating from it. It made me want to learn more, and I loved the mystery of that scientist there who sort of starts this whole thing. And I like how the archetypes themselves get into, and I love the physics of it too. I do. Yeah. I love the physics.
I knew literally, Adam, this was like the one thing I knew for a fact that I'm like, you were going to like this solely because of this hyper specific science stuff. Like, I knew that when I first watched it.
And like, I wish I could do that in the Godzilla saga in great of detail as that. Like, I just love how it's hard science to a core. I love the archetype stuff where it's also in the present, but it's also in the past, but yet there's also stuff that's happening in the future. And I love how the only time you see that crazy scientist guy, who has been sort of the backdrop of the entire show, is in that one scene where the AI is trying to figure out what the code is.
Yeah,
that's the only scene you see him in, until the very end, of course, the post-credit scene.
Yeah.
But like, I love that shit. And it made stuff make sense. It tied a lot of shit together, almost like a Rubik's Cube, where it's like everything is slowly coming together and being manipulated in the right way. And I use the Rubik's Cube analogy because the archetypes are squares, these little tiny glass squares that they demonstrate within the first couple of episodes. And I'm like, I think I get what this is trying to do. And I also kind of admit that it doesn't treat the audience like an idiot either.
No, I think it's really mature for what the show is doing. Like, it doesn't like, I know I've been joking about like how it like over explains stuff and doesn't like, but it doesn't like ham-fisted. It's not like a character is just like off screen going like an English guy. It's like something like, you know what I mean? Like,
oh, so
for the viewer.
It's not that guy from Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Rick Stanton.
Rick Stanton, thank you.
I hate that fucker. Nothing wrong. Nothing against the actor, but I hate that fucker.
Oh no, the actor. I love the actor. He played. He played in The West Wing, and he's amazing in The West Wing.
It's just like, my God, the way that character. I hate that character so much.
Boy, howdy. He also plays in. I think he plays in The Cabin in the Woods. That guy.
Does he?
Yeah, I think he's one of the scientists.
Shit,
or one of the facility people.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
That movie fucking rules.
Another thing I want to mention about Godzilla Singular Point before I forget it. The soundtrack is so fucking good.
Oh yeah. I think
it is so good.
Does it use the Godzilla theme at any point?
Oh yeah, it does. Big time.
I forgot if it did.
It almost overuses Godzilla's theme in a couple of moments, but then I'm like, oh yeah, it's a show. It's not. I know I'm binge watching it. You're not really supposed to binge watch it. I get it.
Well, you say that, but at the same time, they drop all the episodes all at once, and it's like, what are you trying to promote here, guys?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But boy, howdy, did this soundtrack kick ass. And I have not heard any other score this guy has done.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on that front, to be honest with you.
I have not heard anything else from this guy, and I'm like, what the fuck? I know nobody who's worked on this show. Absolutely nobody. Which made this a really good, fresh viewing experience. Granted, I think that helped my experience in it because I knew nothing going into it. Or I had no expectations going into it, I should say.
Which is, like, to me, like, that's always, like, one of the best ways to watch something. It's just go in, just raw dog it and see what happens, truthfully.
Did the old crazy guy and that really buff dude die?
No, they're all alive at the end.
They lived? Okay, I couldn't remember.
I gotta double check Goro, because Goro was the older guy. I think they all lived
because when they make the jump and they release Jet Jaguar, I really like that scene in many ways because the character with the guy with the bluish gray hair.
Yeah, that's you.
Yeah,
that's the main
character, and him saying like we've got to jump, we've got to jump. And everything like that. And I love the fact that the muscle guy knows that he's going to have to just let Jet Jaguar go while they make the jump, the dive. But he doesn't tell him because it's so clear that he knows that, what's his name, Yoon?
Yeah, you.
If you knew what he was doing, he would protest.
Yeah.
But he does it anyways, and I like that. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
stuff like that where I go, I wish I cared a little bit more about his character had they taken the time to make you breathe. This show, I can't believe I'm saying this, but this show could have almost benefited from having another 5 episodes just to sort of space shit out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Have you seen The Mist?
The movie? Yeah.
Did you get the Mist vibes out of portions in this film?
I don't think as much with it. Maybe more so towards the end of it, when like everything is really covered by the.
That.
Yeah, I think just mainly from there.
I also love the fact that the red stuff is so thick they have to wear gas masks.
Yeah,
I loved
cool.
that
That's a
little
cool
detail.
Like, yeah,
I love that. I also love the fact that when they land on Godzilla, Godzilla has lice.
Yeah.
Which I know is a bit of a callback to Return of Godzilla.
Yeah.
But you never see that. And
yeah.
I love that detail.
That's what I appreciated about, guess what, everyone? Lucas is going to bring up Cloverfield. That's what I liked about Cloverfield, was that the monster just because it was a being that was in the ocean, just had like creatures that were like naturally feeding on its back.
Yeah.
And then when they'd come onto land, turns out they fuck with humans really bad.
Oh yeah, I've always loved that stuff, and I remember being confused by that concept forever. Like I thought that those were Cloverfield's babies, and only as I got older did suddenly I start going, "Oh no, he just has a bad case of lice."
Yeah, it's that, and like I also obviously like growing up, I watched a lot of animal stuff, so I know about like symbiotic relationships and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's not the term. I don't think symbiotic. I think that's one.
Symbiotic is where one creature relies on the other to properly coexist.
But are they harming one another though, or because I know there's a relationship where it's like one that's parasitic is the other one I'm thinking. Then okay.
Yeah, because you're thinking of a parasite. They're like ticks.
Yeah.
Those are just annoying parasites that you need to kill any chance.
All right, cool. I was right.
But I love those details, and Singular Point is so full of that stuff. I really do. I know you complained that you didn't really care for the Rodan stuff. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I like his first episode where that Rodan has no idea what the fuck is going on, and it is clearly just as freaked out over what everything and everybody as the people are.
Let me just clarify real quick. It's not that I didn't like it. It was more so I was talking more so from
a design standpoint. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think conceptually it's fine, and that stuff was cool. I agree with you on that. I just didn't like that. I feel like they leaned way too much into like the pterodactyl look to it. And it looks fun. For the record, it looks fine. I just like I liked how Rodan was kind of like a hybrid, kind of like that, and also like more like bird in nature too.
I personally, again, and the reason why I think I bought it more than probably you did is just because I'm like, oh, something new.
Fair, no, that's fair.
I
got it.
I don't know, because again, I'm walking a tightrope on that because I'm not a big fan of Fire Rodan. Mm-hmm. In Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, I'm more of a fan of the concept than I am of the design and execution.
Yeah, I prefer Rodan more like I prefer naturally. I didn't really like the bright red on Fire Rodan. I just prefer like the brownish.
I prefer the brownish. Like that includes Godzilla Final Wars too. I don't really care for that design as well.
Is it Fire Rodan in Final Wars?
No, it's just a regular Rodan in that film.
Okay.
Just a regular Rodan. I love that sentence. But
as opposed to the Gucci Rodan.
Right. And I'll say this as well. I don't think Rodan has. I think Rodan's best appearance, best design, best execution is the original Rodan. I don't think he's ever been topped since the original Rodan in terms of both how lifelike he looked and how he moved, and also how terrifying that fucking thing is.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah. I was also happy that they didn't include Mothra really in this. I mean, they kind of do with all the little tiny moths flying on second to last episode, I think. But I'm just glad that they didn't outright say, "Oh, it's Mothra." No, it's just a moth.
They didn't
just
like
a tiny thing that comes from this. And I'm like, oh, thank God.
They didn't play like the Mothra cry like they did in the anime trilogy at one point.
Yeah, they didn't need to do any of that either.
No,
I do appreciate this series for knowing when it needed to be. It dropped some fan service in there and when not to. And for the most part, they didn't really drop that much in there at all.
Not really. Yeah. It's not like they were like multiple characters going like, "Oh my God, is that Anguirus? We're calling that Anguirus now." And it's like, no, it's like, it just,
that
that's just what
episode
they call
was
the
so
universe.
good.
Oh, it's
Oh,
great.
I
No, it's an awesome
loved
episode.
that. You know what it reminded me of in some ways? It reminded me of Jurassic Park: The Lost World, where they were going after the Stegosaurus. I think it's a Stegosaurus.
Oh yeah.
I got that vibe from it, and I was okay with that. I was like, I liked that scene in that movie. I also love the relationship between Goro and that other old crazy guy, where they're just yelling and screaming at each other, but when the going gets rough, they're like buddy.
Yeah. I forgot about that. That was great. That was awesome.
I love that shit. I did. I really like that shit. I love those little details. If only it was the rule and not the exception. I think this show would have gone from a B+ to at least an A if they just fleshed these characters and let them breathe a little bit more. Like the main girl and her mentor, flesh their relationship out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I want to care about these guys. I like these guys. I love the fact that I thought this guy was going to be the guy who is really doing the, what the fuck is it called? The orthogonal diagonalizer.
Yeah, there you go.
The guy who really plays with that, right? I love how the series kind of builds that he's going to be the bad guy, and he turns out not to be.
Yeah, he's not really. He's just kind of doing his thing.
He's just doing his thing, and I think he's actually genuinely a good guy. He's just kind of crazy.
Yeah.
What the fuck was up with that girl's eyes, man? The old lady.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
I forgot about that,
I was
actually.
expecting there to be something where it was like she's actually from a different dimension, or she had traveled through one of the archetypes, and that's why her eyes are really weird and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of the orthogonal diagonalizer,
Yeah.
I love that scene where they have it explode in the pit and it traps. I'm going to say it's Gabara. I know it's not.
It's fine.
I love that. The spikes go up through
cool.
it. I'm like, that's really fucking cool.
That was a cool scene. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And I love it when Gabara escapes and stuff like that. And I love how they're shooting up. They have the one rocket at it. I'm like, this is so much cooler than just having the army shooting at it, like we would normally get in a movie like this. And it adds a bit of a personal stake to it. That's one of the few things in Godzilla Final Wars where I'm like, this is really cool, is where we see those mutants and stuff like that climbing walls and shit and shooting lasers at Ebera and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is really cool in Godzilla Final Wars. And I'm glad they kind of did something similar in Singular Point. They added some personal stakes to it, other than just the military fighting these monsters.
Oh, I actually would like to add something really quick.
Yeah.
Because I just noticed it now. So the show was animated by 2 studios. It was animated, and I guess I'm going to just make the assumption on this. I think the 2D stuff was done by Bones, while the 3D stuff was actually done by Studio Orange, which Studio Orange did Beastars. I think you've
that
at
makes
the
a
very least
lot
you've
of
heard
sense.
of it, right? Yeah. That I'm thinking about that now. I'm like, yeah, that totally lines up. Actually,
That makes a lot of sense. I love Beastars. Yeah.
Beastars is great. Oh, Beastars is sick.
Beastars is everything Zootopia should have been.
Oh well, it's funny you say that because I do have a show that's kind of in that category too. But we'll get to that when we get to that.
Does that make me a furry? Probably. I don't care.
Yeah, who cares?
But yeah, just really good. Very glad that I watched it, and upset that I put Singular Point off as long as I did.
Honestly, it's probably good that you did in a weird way, that you didn't take anything by like initial reaction. You had time to just let it stew. So when you were finally able to sit down and watch it.
Well, I also want to be clear that I avoided any and all spoilers with Singular Point. Like I watched no reviews beforehand. I didn't read up on it, other than I wanted to find out who made it. And I didn't know anything going into it. I knew no spoilers. I avoided all of them. And I'm glad that I did. Yeah. Because boy, howdy, was I on a ride. I also really liked... this is just a trope that I like in general. I love how there are 2 stories going on at once. And they slowly converge. And,
Adam, I can't wait to tell you about this one show. I can't wait to tell you about this one show, actually, now that you say that.
Wait, what was that?
So, no, there was a show I did want to mention on stream at some point tonight.
Okay.
That I watched recently.
Well, I'm looking for new shows to watch. As some of you may have noticed, I watched Star Wars Andor recently.
I still need to watch it.
And boy,
I'm gonna
howdy,
watch
did
it at
that
some
show
point.
piss me off. Not because it was bad, but because it was so good. Now I have no choice but to be invested in Star Wars again. I just got over Star Wars. And now here's the show that is everything I've always wanted Star Wars to be.
Yeah, I gotta give it a chance because I've been recommended by multiple people, including you, whose like opinions on this kind of stuff I really trust, and it's like, yeah, I should give this a chance then. If I'm hearing that from so many people, it's probably worth the time. Yeah.
Well, so unless you have anything else you want to say about Singular Point, I guess we can wrap at least this side of the conversation up.
I think I pretty much have said my piece with Singular Point. Whereas again, I think it's pretty solid overall. And if they do a season 2, I would be excited to see that. I'm just not sure. Like again, I feel like I haven't. I sometimes feel like I've heard they're going to do a season 2, and then they haven't. So like, I don't know.
Granted, the pandemic and everything like that.
That's
too.
also true.
You know,
that's a good point.
I was very glad that I watched it. I know I liked this movie more than a lot of Godzilla fans did, and I don't give a fuck because
hell yeah.
Quite frankly, I don't think the Godzilla fans know what's good for them anymore. I think they get.
Hey, Adam.
What?
Adam, that's me and Pokemon.
I believe that full-heartedly. Yeah, I want to say that's Antonio and Sonic too. But and the reason why I say that is just because I'm so glad that this was an entirely new take on Godzilla. And as I've said before, I do think that they should have integrated Godzilla more and have him do more than just be on screen for literally only 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And I do think Godzilla is one of the weaker aspects of the show. But the universe itself was so interesting and so cool and left me wondering and wanting more. In a good way, that to me it overshadowed that lack of Godzilla. However, I do agree with the criticism though that I've seen, and that is they've gone so radical in a new direction with Godzilla in this case that it might as well not have been Godzilla. It could have been any monster. And I do kind of see that argument. I really do.
I can agree with that too, actually, to be honest.
But just because it was a new take, I think I was able to forgive it. I really do. And sure, it was very radical in its new take on Godzilla and everything like that, and it wasn't deep or anything like that. This movie doesn't really... I don't think this movie really has anything profound to say. I think it was just a concise, hard sci-fi story with kaijus in it.
I can agree with you on that too.
And a part of me thinks that, and this is why it keeps it from being an A, is I think that hurts the movie almost. Because, you know, there's something that I've always admired about all these Godzilla movies, the good ones, is they do have something they're trying to say. They're a good movie first and foremost. They work as movies. But they've got this message underneath it, this allegory or a theme that is lacking in Godzilla Singular Point. And again, and I hate comparing it to Evangelion so much, but the comparisons are apt. Because you can clearly see they pulled some visual stuff from it.
Yeah.
Evangelion is such a personal movie, or show, series in general. Where it's an exploration of who we are as people, what makes us us kind of deal.
Yeah.
And I think even if that's stuff that I wish Singular Point had, something in there like that, something in there to make me go, this is an exploration of us. Or if they want to go the hard sci-fi route, why don't they do something like 2001 maybe, an exploration of us as humans, an exploration of what's our next step in evolution, which would be very interesting. And I think that could play into, you know, that crazy scientist guy.
Goro.
No.
Oh, no, not Goro.
The guy who's kind of this series' Gendo. He kind of reminds me of
Oh,
Gendo.
oh, yeah. I
The
see
guy
that
who's
character.
trying to
I
do
like his
Mechagodzilla.
name. Yeah, yeah,
I think if they did that, this show would have been better. I just think it
yeah,
would have hit harder. Maybe they'll do that with a season 2. Because let's face
yeah.
it, there's a whole universe that this show can set up. And I actually like this comparison that I read in an online review where this person explained that Shin Godzilla ends on a cliffhanger that will never be answered and should never be answered. And that's Godzilla splitting off into human forms. That
Yeah.
it's evolved again. And realize that it can't take one form, it should take multiple forms.
Mm-hmm.
Singular Point takes that idea and says, no, we are going to answer that, and we are going to flesh that out, and we don't care.
Yeah, yeah. I can
And
see
I
what you're
like
saying.
that. I like that. Because they're not compromising on it as well. They're not compromising on that as well. The only thing that I really think was holding them back is Toho's very strict rules about Godzilla, at least Japanese Godzilla, in their Japanese films. And I don't know if you're aware of this, Lucas.
I kind of have heard and read bits and pieces about it, but go enlighten just
In
to get the picture
Japan,
out
I
there.
guess Toho says Godzilla can't have any humanistic features at all. He can't act remotely human. He can't eat people. And there's a couple of others there as well. Like, he can't have, like, a character.
Yeah,
Per se, he needs to be more of a force.
Okay.
And I think that ultimately is going to hold them back.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll say this about their Reiwa films, and then I think I'll wrap up this conversation.
Yeah.
I've been praising their Reiwa stuff just because they've been trying stuff new. That being said, all of what I've discussed has really been the universes of these movies, with the exception of Shin. Shin kind of is a mixture, but it's been mainly the universes. In terms of Godzilla himself, or itself, he's been basically the same in each one, where he's sort of this benevolent force that's just kind of trying to survive, and humans kind of get in the way.
Yeah.
Not benevolent like legendary Godzilla, to be specific, but where he's just sort of like a walking force.
No, I get what you're saying.
And I think that is all because of the limitations Toho have put on the creators. I think that's why.
I can. You know what's a weird connection I can make with this in a way?
Hmm.
And this is going to be a weird left field, but just bear with me here. Honestly, like Mario. I don't know if you know anything about like expanded like other Mario games, but like something like the Paper Mario series has all these unique characters and designs and actually will tell like a meaningful story. And it's because those are like role-playing games. They're like turn-based RPGs. And they'll completely make new characters that are completely not like they'll be like, you know, like Koopas and Goombas and stuff like that, but then they'll be like completely random kind of species never introduced in this series. But there's since like God, I want to say like 2012 maybe, or like 2013ish, there's been like this weird thing that like Shigeru Miyamoto wants everything to just be like just the only other creatures that exist are just toads and just Koopas, but none of these other things that were introduced. And it's frustrating because it was like they actually like flesh out Mario of all characters in these kind of games, and it's like, oh nope, he's just back to being Wahoo Man, and it's just kind of a shame.
It is a good app. That is an app comparison, I think.
It's a weird one. It's a weird one.
I don't know.
Trust me.
I don't think it's weird at all, because it's another franchised character that is almost being shackled by the company.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be that guy real quick and just say, because the Paper Mario games are like some of the best Mario games, period. Even ones like to me, like the Thousand Year Door, that's like the big one everyone says is like the best one, and quite frankly I agree with. But then it's like the following one, Super Paper Mario, is it's not even an RPG, it's more of like a side scroller like Mario is normally known for. But that game's fucking great also, and the story in that game is fucking great too. The characters they introduce are great, and it's like, why can't we have more shit like this? More like this. It's good.
Granted, I know absolutely nothing about Mario.
I know. I'm just mentioning because it was
I
like
know
something
less
I could relate
about
to with
Mario than I do Sonic. And
Proud
I
of
love you, Antonio, but you're never gonna get me into Sonic. You're never gonna get me.
That's
into
not true.
Sonic.
You like Big now.
I do like Big.
Big is base though, honestly. Like I like Big too. I was
Big
a fool
is
for ever
Big
not
is a
liking Big.
daddy.
Yeah, he's fun.
He's daddy.
Yes. Dad Big.
So that was Singular Point, everybody.